Imagine discovering mountains of gold and silver, so much wealth that ships return home overflowing with treasure every single year. Now imagine that empire going bankrupt. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly. In the 1500s, Philip II of Spain ruled the most powerful empire on earth. Spain controlled territories across Europe, the Americas, and even parts of Asia. Its fleets crossed oceans carrying unimaginable wealth extracted from the New World. Gold and silver poured into Spain on a scale humanity had never seen before. By every logical measure, Spain should have dominated the global economy for centuries. Yet something strange happened. Despite owning the world's largest treasure supply, Spain repeatedly collapsed financially. Meanwhile, a smaller and poorer rivaling land slowly rose to dominate global trade, finance, and eventually the entire economic system. The answer reveals something deeper than wars or politics. It reveals the hidden power of financial systems. In the early 1500s, Spain stood at the center of the world. After the voyages of Christopher Columbus, Spain gained access to vast mineral wealth in the Americas. Massive mines such as Potosi and Zacatecas began producing enormous quantities of silver. Treasure fleets sailed regularly across the Atlantic carrying this wealth back to Europe. Between 1500 and 1650, historians estimate Spain imported more than 180 tons of gold and roughly 16,000 tons of silver. This was the largest transfer of precious metals in world history. To Spain, this treasure represented wealth itself. Gold meant power, and silver meant dominance. The empire built its economic strategy around extracting these metals and shipping them home. But while Spain focused on treasure, something very different was happening across the Channel in England. Like Spain, England had no massive mines or endless supply of precious metals. It lacked the easy wealth pouring into Spanish ports. Instead, England focused on trade, production, and gradually the development of financial institutions. English merchants expanded commercial networks across the Atlantic Ocean, connecting markets between Europe, the Americas, and Asia. Textiles produced in England were exchanged for sugar from Caribbean plantations, timber from North America, and spices from Asian trade routes. Commerce multiplied wealth through exchange rather than extraction. Over time, this trading culture produced something even more powerful than goods or ships: a financial system. The turning point came in 1694 with the creation of the Bank of England. This institution allowed the government to borrow money from investors while stabilizing national currency and managing public debt. For the first time, a country had a permanent system for financing large projects and wars through organized credit. This innovation fundamentally changed the economic balance of power. Spain relied on treasure shipments to fund its empire. England relied on a system that could create and mobilize capital on demand. Gold and silver were finite, but credit could expand almost indefinitely. Meanwhile, Spain's flood of silver created an unintended economic disaster. As treasure entered Europe in massive quantities, prices across Europe began rising dramatically in what historians call the price revolution. Inflation spread through markets, but Spain suffered the most. The Spanish economy had become dependent on imported goods. Instead of building strong domestic industries, Spain used silver to purchase food, tools, weapons, and luxury goods from other European countries. As inflation increased, the purchasing power of silver declined. Spain needed more and more treasure just to buy the same products. Despite the constant arrival of treasure fleets, the empire's finances grew increasingly unstable. By the late 1500s, the crisis became unavoidable. Philip II of Spain was forced to declare bankruptcy multiple times in 1557, 1575, and again in 1596. The situation baffled Europe. How could the richest empire in the world be unable to pay its debts? The answer was simple, but profound. Spain possessed immense wealth in the form of metal, but it lacked the economic infrastructure to sustain long-term growth. Treasure alone could not support an empire. Economic systems mattered more. While Spain struggled with inflation and debt, England continued strengthening its financial and commercial institutions. By the early 1700s, London had emerged as a global financial center. Investors funded overseas expeditions, merchants borrowed capital to expand trade, and insurance companies protected shipping ventures. Banks facilitated transactions and expanded credit markets. This system allowed England to do something Spain could not: finance enormous military conflicts without immediate collapse. During major conflicts such as the 7 Years' War, England borrowed heavily from investors and bond markets. The government issued debt that citizens and financial institutions willingly purchased. This system transformed war financing from a gamble into a structured economic strategy. Spain's model remained fragile because it depended on physical treasure shipments. If fleets were lost to storms or attacked by rivals, the empire's finances could collapse instantly. England's system, by contrast, relied on trust in institutions and the ability to generate credit through financial markets. Over time, this difference reshaped global power. By the 19th century, England had become the dominant economic force in the world. Its banks, trade routes, and financial markets formed the backbone of the global economy. Spain eventually recognized the weaknesses of its economic model and attempted reforms. Governments tried encouraging manufacturing and reducing reliance on imports. But centuries of dependence on treasure had already weakened domestic industries. Economic habits were deeply entrenched. Meanwhile, England continued expanding its industrial base and financial institutions during the Industrial Revolution. Factories, mechanized production, and expanding capital markets pushed England far ahead of competitors. Spain had possessed immense natural wealth, yet England's institutional infrastructure ultimately proved more powerful. The story of Spain and England is more than a historical rivalry. It reveals a pattern that continues today. Nations rich in natural resources often struggle with economic stability. Economists refer to this phenomenon as the resource curse. Countries abundant in oil, minerals, or other raw materials sometimes fail to develop diversified economies. Meanwhile, nations that invest in financial systems, innovation, and strong institutions frequently dominate global markets. The modern global economy still reflects structures first developed during England's rise to financial dominance. Today's financial world runs on central banking, government bonds, credit markets, and complex financial institutions, many of which trace their origins back to systems pioneered in England centuries ago. These mechanisms move trillions of dollars every day and shape global economic decisions. Just as in the 17th century, the countries that control financial infrastructure often hold more influence than those that simply control physical resources. The conflict between Spain and England was not merely a battle between empires. It was a contest between two fundamentally different economic philosophies: extraction versus systems. Three important lessons emerge from this economic battle. First, natural resources alone rarely guarantee long-term prosperity. Spain possessed enormous reserves of precious metals, yet failed to transform that wealth into sustainable economic growth. Second, financial institutions can reshape global power. England's development of organized credit systems allowed it to mobilize capital on an unprecedented scale. Third, invisible economic structures often determine real influence. Gold and silver may appear powerful, but institutions, banks, markets, and credit networks ultimately control the flow of wealth. The rise of England and the fall of Spain reveal a deeper truth about economic history. The most powerful forces shaping global wealth are often invisible. Empires may appear wealthy on the surface, but true power lies in the systems that control how money moves. Spain had mountains of silver, yet it lacked the institutions needed to turn that treasure into lasting power. England, starting with far fewer resources, built the financial architecture that eventually shaped the modern world. So the next time we look at a nation rich in resources or another that dominates financial markets, it is worth remembering this hidden lesson from history. The real question is not who possesses the most visible wealth. The real question is who controls the system that moves it. And throughout history, those who build and control those systems rarely lose their influence. If you want to keep exploring the hidden economic battles that shape the modern financial world, make sure to follow the channel, because many of the forces that decided the fate of empires centuries ago are still shaping the global economy today.